options online that tell you like how to make your own breast milk cream, but I knew that it wasn't safe simply because it had no preservatives whatsoever. We put vitamin E oil, which is good for the oily side, but it doesn't protect the water side of it. And so that's the bit that's actually the most dangerous because it will grow bacteria, mold, yeast, and all that stuff.
I think the main let's look at the origin of Labars.
Yeah.
And I think, what was your mindset when you started thinking about doing it? Like, what did you think in terms of starting a business, and also when you came up with the idea? Was it kind of like, oh my God?
I did. It's funny because I actually didn't think I would ever be able to start my own business. I didn't think I had it in me, to be honest. It just seemed so unattainable, and like people, to me, people who started their own business, like their IQ is like fucking so high. Like they have like courage that I don't have, like all of the things that I just would never be able to do. Um, but my husband actually, he started his own business, and it's nothing to do with skincare or anything like that, but he kind of really encouraged me and gave like inspired me to start my own business as well. My passion about skincare has been ongoing for like over a decade. I have spent so much money, like, so much money. I've tried everything. I've caused skin sensitization with the amount of stuff I would
To your
plaster
own
on my
skin.
face. Like 12-step Korean skincare. You remember those days? I took it way farther. I did like a 20-step, like, because it's like I
Do
definitely
it
had
well.
the yeah, exactly. I thought the more the better, which most people think, right? Which is a huge misconception, especially in the skincare industry, that people will market as like an ingredient having a higher percentage than all these other brands that contain the same ingredient. And people are like, well, the more the better, then I'll buy this one instead. And you don't actually realize that there's stuff that can cause sensitization or irritation or anything like that. So definitely in skincare, more is definitely not better. And I learned that the hard way. And
So did I. To
yeah.
be fair. What When you first came up with the idea of the breast
Mm.
milk skincare kit, what was the initial reaction from, say, people around you, or like even yourself going, holy shit, like this is such a good
Yeah.
idea?
So the breast milk skincare kit didn't come until after I started working on other products. So the soothing serum actually came first.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I had a lot of other products iterations that were in the works. I think I had at least the soothing serum. I had a
yeah.
cleanser, I had a moisturizer, and I had a lip balm going. And I think I was like working on a foaming scrub, and then that's when the idea of the breast milk skincare kit came into play, and then everything went on pause. I think the only thing that was finalized was actually the soothing serum, because at that point I think
Yeah,
everybody, family, friends, I was like handing them out like hotcakes.
to
Everybody was
everyone,
all
yeah.
over it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, everyone wants it on my side. Don't worry about that.
But so essentially how it happened is my son Remy used to get really, really bad nappy rashes, and my midwife advised to put breast milk on there, and I was like, holy crap, it just took it down so quickly. It healed a lot quicker. My gripe with it was that it just rolled off the skin like, water. So I figured that there's got to be a better way. So I looked up online, and yeah, there are options online that tell you like how to make your own breast milk cream, but I knew that it wasn't safe simply because it had no preservatives whatsoever. Just to go a little bit deeper into it, a lot of these recipes that you find online, that they tell you, you take your breast milk and you
Coconut
take like
oil.
coconut oil or
Mm,
olive oil or any type of oils. It's not the oil that's the problem, is that they're not using a preservative. So your breast milk, has both fat and water in it. So the fat part, which is the oil part, if you use vitamin E, which typically is what they advise, it will it will stop it from going rancid. So that's kind of like the oil going off, essentially. It doesn't grow mold because it needs water and stuff like that. Bacteria, yeast, all of those things need water to grow. So the oil will not grow that, but it does go rancid. So the quality of the oil will go down. It'll start smelling like old crayons. You know that smell of like
Ah,
old
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Crayola? Yeah, that's typically how you know something's gone rancid. So if you go in a shop and you find a product that's natural and like that smells like Crayola, typically means that
Don't
it's
touch
gone
it.
off. Yeah, don't touch it. It's
Mm,
gone off. So that was my only thing with it, is that they only put vitamin E oil, which is good for the oily side, but it doesn't protect the water side of it. And so
mm.
that's the bit that's actually the most dangerous because it will grow bacteria, mold, yeast, and all that stuff. So it was like a great
Yeah,
idea, but I don't see it being shelf stable. You have to put it in a fridge. And like, do you want to put like really cold cream on your face, on your
on
bum,
your.
or any part of your body?
Mhm.
Like nothing sounds worse to me than like really cold cream on my skin. So I was like, I don't actually want to store it in the fridge either, which would have been one of the solutions. So yeah, that's when I
And
started
would
thinking
everyone
about
know
doing
to
that.
store it in the fridge as well? Like
Well, they don't
in terms
always
of
say that.
DIYs. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've not seen the fridge one, so yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You
I
should
feel
if
like
there's no preservative, and also the shelf life would still be very short. We're still talking like less than a week in terms of shelf life
um,
without it growing stuff. Yeah, and just because you
mm,
don't see it doesn't mean it's not growing in there. That's the other thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
because it
so
can
you
be
could
like a
pause.
white. Mm.
Yeah, it can be
And I
white, it
mean,
can be green, it could be black, it could be all that. Yeah.
what do we see as a result or a symptom of wiping something that has gone bad on people's skin? It's just,
Well,
you know, what can you call it?
if the
Infection, I
skin
guess.
barriers, well, it depends. Yeah, if you have a compromised skin barrier and you're going to add something that has like bacterial growth, then you're introducing extra bacteria into, and you're almost
Mm,
guaranteed to get an infection. And so that's what you
yeah.
want to avoid. And when you're using anything like that, like if I'm, when I want to use a breast milk cream, I want to heal something. You know, yes, it's
Mm,
great for
mm,
moisturization, but typically you're only applying it because you're like, oh, I've got a bit of a rash, or I, had a cut or something like that, or a sunburn. All of those things are compromised skin barriers, which means that it's a little bit more open to the elements and more susceptible to infection. And yeah, so that is definitely one of the biggest
well,
risks.
and one of the other things is the breast milk soap. So that's obviously quite
Right.
popular. So cream is
Right.
obviously quite separate because it's not as popular, but the soap is there. How does
Yeah.
that how does that kind of work out
So
in a way that's better?
the lye in the soap, I believe. I'm not exactly sure on the science behind that. The lye in the
Mm,
soap supposedly is going to be the one that's preserving the breast milk, but your breast milk is like a minimal, like really small amount, because it has to, one, be
mm.
suspended in the soap. It has to be a small amount that the rest of the lye is able to preserve it. For me, it's just I don't I
It's
haven't
all a bit
ventured into this breast milk soap yet. Those
cold
soap
press
kits,
soap, yeah.
cold press soap.
Mm,
Yeah, I haven't ventured into cold press soap so much. I'm definitely more of like an emulsion type of
mm,
formulator. But yeah, it's for me it's still questionable. But I
mm.
think it's more widely used, the soap, for sure.
Well, known, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd heard of breast milk soap before I
Mm,
had met you.
mm,
Um, and I guess I'd never really understood any of this anyway. But one of the things that I now can't quite understand is with the soap, you're in a bath and you're not getting a lot on you anyway. That's
yeah.
a
You're
diluted
washing it
situation
off. Yeah.
regardless. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where I was like, oh, okay, you're not seeing a major benefit when it comes to that side of
No,
things,
I
in my
wouldn't say. I think that if you're gonna use it like because you have an actual
opinion.
problem, I can't imagine that you'd see such a drastic improvement. I think if
Difference,
you
yeah.
use it every day, like sure, it might make your skin a little bit softer and stuff like that. But yeah, if you're suffering from
Mm,
something like eczema, I imagine that you'd actually want a drastic improvement,
mm.
which I don't
Eh,
think you would get with the soap.
no, no, I can't say it because when I use ours, the kind of how drastic the results are is
Mm.
quite astounding, especially for
Yeah.
someone like myself who just never thought about this at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't see how the soap would have the same effect realistically.
We should try it out.
Because of
We
the
should do
stretching.
a side by side test. I suppose.
That's true.
Yeah.
Should I be the one that makes it?
Yeah.
I don't
I'll
have any
send you
breast
my
milk.
breast milk. You make your own
Yeah.
soap.
And then, okay, so you think to yourself, okay, we need to work out a formulation for
Yeah.
breast milk, and how do we do it? Where did you start? Like, what was the
I'll answer
catalyst?
your previous question, which I didn't answer, was how
Sure.
people reacted when I first came up with the
Yeah.
idea. It was funny because Zach was very like taken aback at first, and he was like, I see where you're going with this.
Mm,
And he knows me, I'm completely nuts. So, I mean, it wasn't completely out of the realm of possibility for me to come up with something so ridiculous. But he was very supportive. He was definitely taken aback at first. I think that the person that was the most supportive was probably my mother-in-law.
oh
Lindsay
yeah.
was like immediately like, because she's very
Great.
involved. She's very
Mm,
involved. She like, she every nappy rash, I showed her, and she was
mm,
definitely like concerned and stuff. And she's very involved and wants to find solutions. And so when she saw the results with just the breast milk, and then I told her about like,
mm,
did you see do you think maybe this might be a good idea? And she's
mm,
like, holy crap, yeah, that's amazing. And she was already using serum at that point and stuff like that. So
mm.
she knew I
She had
could do it.
faith in it.
She had
Yeah, yeah,
faith
yeah.
in me. And so that was really great. I think the person that was just gave me plain silence was my father-in-law. Because he's from Alabama, so he's
He's
not
just like,
he's not into that type of thing, you know what I mean? And like a little like
yeah.
even less about breast milk. So
I was gonna say, don't talk to me about breast milk.
yeah.
That I can understand. It is funny because
uh,
you do get different reactions for sure when you tell
yes.
people what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was, yeah, definitely it was very funny. And I still get a little bit like awkward when people are like,
Mm.
"Oh, you have a skincare business." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's pregnancy safe stuff." And they're like, "Okay, I'll check you out." And they're like, "Oh, they're going to see it's a breast."
I was gonna say, I told someone over the weekend. They're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I own a skincare brand." And he goes, "Oh my god, what's the name?" Da da da. And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, like what are you selling?" And I said, "Well, it's gonna sound strange." And I always start like that, that it's gonna sound strange. And then when I told him, lovely gay guy, and he was like, "That's so unique." I was like, "Sure."
It's like someone telling you you're special.
Yeah. It's like, "Oh, that's fun." Yeah, yeah. So is it real? He's like, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
real."
Does it work? It works. Yeah. Wait until
Yeah.
he has a skin problem and then comes for you for some.
Mm. Okay, so you told everyone. How many iterations do you think you did before you've landed on what we have now?
I want to say there was probably like 40-ish iterations, or a lot
Mm.
of iterations, a lot of testing. A lot of it was waiting as well, just to see, if the preservative
Stability
worked, if it
testing.
was, yeah, it was shelf stable and stuff like that. I'll say that the person that was just as involved as I was in the formulation was probably Zach,
Mm.
because every time I needed somebody to test on that wasn't me, he was the closest person to me, so that was great. And there was no way I was going to test it on my son without, having the final formulation and making
He did it
absolutely
to your husband.
170% sure that it was going to be completely safe. So,
Mm.
I mean, he could take
What
antibiotics.
was You'll be fine.
Yeah, all right.
What were some of the biggest issues you came up against at the beginning?
Um, to be honest, it wasn't always meant to be a cream. The original one I wanted to do was actually in stick form.
Yeah. I was about
Because
to say a bar.
I wanted the ease of just like, like almost like those natural deodorants, how they come in those little
Mm.
vapor. That was the original vision. I wanted it to be in that, and that you could just like pop it open and then slather it on the butt and then pop it back in the thing and then be on your merry way. But it just wasn't I couldn't get the formulation right. I think it was early days for me as well, and working with emulsions and stuff like that, but it just, yeah, it didn't work out like to the consistency that I wanted it to be with it,
Yeah.
because for it to be in a stick form, it means that it had to
It's going to be
be
pretty hard.
more oil, or like more
Mm,
like, the waxy sort of side, and that would mean
mm.
that the quantity of breast milk would have to be a lot less. So now we're very, very
Uh,
close in this formulation, very close to 50%. I knew that the more amount of breast milk in there, the better the effect, so that
mm.
had to be put aside because it was just not going to have the effect or the healing properties that I wanted it to have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because having that much in there, I think, is what really makes it
Yeah.
pretty spectacular when it comes down to it. I mean, the other ingredients in there obviously do their job as well, but the breast
Mm.
milk is the pretty
Yeah.
amazing liquid.
Ingredient. Yeah.
So you want to have as much in there as possible. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of the kit, so how it actually is established as a kit as well, what were your thoughts behind some of that? Because you and I, when we first started talking, I was like, so do we really need this? And how is
Mm.
this working? And all that kind of conversation as well. Because obviously, having a kit as big as, I mean, it's not that big, but having it as big as it is, there is shipping elements and in terms of
Mm.
like cost. So there's me going, okay, do we really need this and this and this? So what was kind of the setup of that, and why do we provide everything for them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the kit in itself, like, again, this was like early days for me, and I knew how I was gonna make the cream for myself, and that requires a certain amount of equipment and things like that. I had to make it so that it was easier for somebody who isn't in this like industry
Mm,
to be able to make it at home with like really easy instructions to follow, and still to for them to be able to follow instructions well enough that they can follow like what we call a good manufacturing practice, which
mm,
ensures that there's no introduction with, like, bacteria and stuff like that. So that's why we provide the beaker, it's why we provide the whisk and the spatula, so that the idea is that you use it just for making cream,
solid.
because if you're going to be using a spatula that you've made icing with, it's not exactly
Mm,
good, because it could have like cuts in there that bacteria could go into. So it was really important that if somebody were to make it themselves, that it was going to be foolproof, and that it wasn't going to be like your backyard make your own
yeah,
soap. It's like, not, I'm not
it's
shitting on the
yeah,
soap thing, but it's kind of like that, where it's
you're
like,
a little shit
oh,
on
it's
that.
easy melt and pour, and it's not actually
Mm,
just melt and pour. It's make sure that because you're going to be putting it on your baby, you want to make sure that it's going to be completely safe. So the instructions are a little bit
yeah,
elaborate, and we offer all of these things that, yeah, make shipping costs more and stuff like that, and bring the
mm,
price up. But it's the same method that somebody in the professional, like, cosmetic chemistry field would use, and how they
yeah.
would follow the steps. Yeah.
And that's a really good point because, yeah, when I obviously looked at the whole thing, I went, oh, well, people will have milk frothers in their house. People will have spatulas. People will have all this stuff. What happens if they want to opt out of that? And I even talked to you about, give them the option to be able to pick and choose what's in the kit. And you make an excellent point because there's so many things that could be on those things, and you don't want that to go
Mm.
inside your cream. So
Yeah.
that's a really good point of why we need it to be as big as it is, or as much equipment as you can.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and when you told me, so I think one of our first conversations was because I just started looking up breast milk because I was obviously interested in understanding what the whole hoopla was about because obviously I
Mm.
didn't know. Um, and all the research the papers that have been done on breast milk to kind of look at different skin issues and different issues generally. One thing that I was kind of, blown away by is the idea that when a baby latches onto their mum, the saliva gets reabsorbed into the boob, and then your body then produces the thing that the child needs at the time. Like, what?
It's a communication
That's
channel. Like, what in
crazy.
the world? It's just
That
insane.
is bonkers.
Yeah.
And like, I think also the fact that you have come up with something that then can take that best element and transform it into skincare for everyone to use. So, as we've been told by lots of people, everyone's like, oh, I use it myself. Like my baby, yes, gets it occasionally, but no, it's going on me,
Yeah.
which is quite funny that we've heard that before. And we have said we've got to work out some sort of new formulation for
For
parents and
moms to
stuff
use it,
to
yeah.
use
It's
it on
funny
their
because
face. Yeah.
so in the kit there's the big one and the small bottle. So the big bottle goes to
Mm,
Remy and the small one goes in my handbag because
mm.
dry hands, just slap some on. Oh, I've got a bit of a pimple. I
The
have a hot pimple
hand
down there.
cream. I use it for hand cream all the time. I was
Or
never
your
a hand cream
feet,
person.
or your
Yeah, my feet.
elbows. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
The hydration is just
Yeah.
unbelievable. But
It's sunburn. You don't
I,
know, like.
well, I don't go out in the sun as much as
Oh,
I
okay. No,
probably
if
used
we're
to.
out, because in New Zealand the sun is insane. It's kind of like Australia. The sun is
Mm.
absolutely
Yeah,
insane here,
yeah.
and you forget your sunscreen, and then you leave the beach or whatever, the playground, and you
And you're
realize
red.
that there's a bit of a sunburn. I don't even hesitate. I immediately keep that shit
Yeah.
away.
And, and that's something I've spoken to you about. So we've had a few burns in this house, me and Connor mostly. Definitely not the children, but cooking or whatever we're doing. The kids are playing with fire as they do. Um, but we've burnt ourselves quite severely a few times. We've chucked it on immediately, and I can't believe the relief. Like you don't even feel like you've burnt yourself because you know that
I know.
that horrible feeling once you've burnt yourself. You
Mm,
get a little lump of
the
the
white blood
water,
cells.
whatever it.
Yeah.
Yeah, filling up in the area. It's sensitive to touch. It feels weird. Put that on. There's none of that, which is just wild. And Connor, was like, because he's not a skeptic in any sense of the word, but he also is like, well, it's cream. Like that's how he feels about, any type of skincare or product. And even he was like, you need to tell burn units about this. Like the immediate reaction to a burn with this cream is just
It's insane.
unbelievable. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was actually thinking to myself, I'm like, how do we get in contact with people
I think,
that are
like
at
you said,
hospitals?
it's a little bit complicated because, like you said, it is technically made from blood. Um, it's
Mm,
yeah, but most things that come out of a human body it's had
it's made from
contact
blood,
with
yeah.
blood, right? So it is made from blood.
Mm.
So because of that, if you were to do anything like that official, or that's supposed to be
Sterile.
sterile, you can't have anything in contact with blood because it's yeah,
Mm.
it's
I mean,
unfortunate. So it's
I'm
definitely like a
sure.
personalist thing.
No, but even I'm sure, because obviously the studies they're doing right now with breast milk go well and truly beyond. Like one of the things you and I were laughing about was obviously they were trying it on melanoma.
Yeah.
Um, and now, granted that it didn't treat melanoma,
No.
um, but we were just like, but the fact that they even thought there's a good possibility that this will have
Yeah.
some effect
The
on this
sky's the
is
limit.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
I,
wonder
I
if they
mean, in
tried
our
colostrum,
household,
it might have done something.
I mean, it's all very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, put it past it. But one of the things that in our household is that, we're not limiting ourselves to the areas that we talk about, nappy rash, cuts and scrapes, all those kinds of things. We're just like, all right, what ailment do we have today? All right, let's give it a go. So one of the things I was laughing about with you last week, which was I have incredibly dry, cracked heels.
Mm.
Um, and I normally would do, say, a foot peel or, go to the pedicurist and have them scrape it all off and stuff. But I was using the cream and my whole heel is like 10 times better than it was. The crack hasn't gone, but that's a crack. So I don't think it's going to like
It's the
regrow
dead. The,
skin.
the
And
crack
if
is
it
in the
does,
dead skin cells. You can't bring.
yeah,
It
yeah.
can't resuscitate the dead skin cells.
I mean, maybe. But yeah, it's done a brilliant job on those. Like it doesn't even feel like I need to go to the pedicurist or anything like that.
Yeah.
It actually feels like it's just kind of rejuvenated my foot again. So, well,
Amazing.
I'm trying it on everything. And the other thing is I was noticing my hands were getting I started to see, you know how people talk about aging and how they
Is it
see it
the
in their
age
hands
spots?
first. Not age spots, just your hand starts to look a little bit older, like with the wrinkles
Yeah, it's your
and they look a
skin
bit
skinning.
drier and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started using it. I now use it quite frequently on my hands, and I've really noticed a major difference that they don't seem as old as they were starting to look.
You know what
So
you should
I
do?
find that
Slap some
fascinating.
serum on first and then do the cream because the
As in
hyaluronic
the,
acid in our soothing serum is going to
yeah.
plump the skin and then you can seal it with the Lait Labs.
And then I'll have really pretty hands that we can then
Exactly.
sell on the internet.
Yeah.
I wonder if hands are a
Is there
thing.
a hands thing? I don't know.
Mm, mm.
I'll have to look into it. Might start one.
Now they're like, yeah. Do you know what?